welcome to the Book Divers. On this podcast, we'll dive into stories and review them so you don't have to. Today, I'm joined with Chris and Cameron. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a short story called An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge by Ambrose Bierce. This story is about a man's execution, but I'll leave that to our co-host, Chris.
Hello, I'm the co-host Chris, and today we're going to be reviewing the short story An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. The protagonist of this story is Peyton Farquhar, and he's the focus around the entire story. The antagonist is the officers that are currently executing him on top of the bridge. This story is filled with a bunch of interpretation that you have to do to understand it, so let's dive into it. The first part is you start off and the man is introduced. He's hanging on a bridge, but nobody knows why. Later on in the story, we figure out this is in the southern part of America, back in time, and he's being trialed due to slavery. They have people on each side of the bridge watching guard just in case anybody comes to free the man. And in his final moments, the man can only think about his family members and the garden he has back at his house. The story cuts and does a time skip to where the rope snaps and he falls to the bottom of the bridge. Not dying somehow, this is never explained in the story. And he stumbles through the forest, which it says is endless, and finds his house at the end of it. We don't know how he found his house in the middle of this forest, other than there's a pathway that somehow appeared in the middle of said forest. He sees his family and goes in for a hug. He sees his kids, his wife, and their servant that they have in the house taking care of things. However, the story abruptly ends in what it says to be a white flash and a sound of a crack. We can assume that this is his neck cracking, and we can assume that he died because the white flash signifies him going back into the afterlife. And we can also infer that this man never got off the harness or off the rope that was hanging him in this short story. That's it for my part of the review. Now I'm going to turn it over to Cameron. He's going to finish up the review and give us the final rating of this short story.
Thank you, Chris. As we dove deeper into the book, we realized that the events that transpired early on didn't give good insight as to what actually happened to Peyton Farquhar. We found this out briefly at the end, in which the text described his quote-unquote escape as nothing more than a dream. Other elements describing his backstory and how he ended up being captured were not explained by Ambrose Bierce. For those reasons, I would rate this book a 3 out of 5. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Book Divers. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to be updated on further content. These have been your hosts, Cameron, Cash, and Chris, and we'll dive into another book next week. Bye.